those random acquaintances that make possible
make the world a better place.
6 degrees.
The 6 Degrees Closer podcast is brought to you by Apollo Performance. Apollo socks have it all. The high quality, targeted compression supports joints and reduces swelling. The knit-in energy absorption padding in the heel and ball of the foot has been shown in studies to reduce force, helping you do what you love longer and stronger. This is Beyond a Sock. Welcome to the 6 Degrees Closer podcast. My name is Danny Jensen. We are joined with Zach, who I met at Ohio State. How long ago was that, Zach?
Shoot, man, probably like I graduated 2017. So that alone is 6 years.
Jeez.
And then, we probably met like at least freshman, sophomore year. So yeah, dude, pushing at least like, 6, anywhere between 6 to 9 years, man.
It's crazy.
Almost a decade.
I know that is wild. So no, thank you for joining. This is just going to be great. So can you give our listeners just a little brief overview of who you are, how you got here and where you're at in life?
Yeah, absolutely, brother. So yeah, dude, kind of like, for the listeners out there, kind of like Danny was saying, me and him met at Ohio State. And so I'm actually from originally St. Louis, Missouri. So born and raised St. Louis, Missouri. And throughout, my whole youth, I played pretty much every sport, really got myself acclimated to all sorts of different styles of sport in general. And I just really fell in love with just athletics and sports in general. And so I played pretty much everything growing up. And then as I transitioned into high school, I started to kind of narrow my focus and really started to lean into the lacrosse and the football side of things. And as I started to get closer to like my senior year in high school, it became more and more evident that, I was really going to try to play one of the two in college. And so I pretty much got recruited for both lacrosse and football. And at the time, I always kind of had the goal when I was younger to go to a bigger university. I honestly don't really know why. I think I was just intrigued by kind of getting out of my norm and getting out of where I was from. And so I always just even though it was a very blanket goal and like a broad goal, I always wanted to just go somewhere that was a bigger public university. And so I remember I was starting to get recruited for football, and I was getting recruited by some like smaller schools right off the bat, like after my junior season. And then I remember like around the same time I started getting recruited for lacrosse. And so pretty much, was getting recruited by some smaller D1 schools for football. And then when my lacrosse recruitment started to take off, I really started to get some interest from bigger schools, which definitely fell more so under the category of what I was looking for. And at the time, honest to God, lacrosse and football were so 50-50 for me, man, especially being like a younger athlete. I didn't really know anything really back then on what I wanted to do. And so I pretty much, dude, I took a couple visits. I remember I visited Mizzou and Illinois for football, but those were pretty much junior day type deals. It wasn't any serious recruitment. I did get invited to a game and talked with coaches at Nebraska. I would say those three were probably the biggest opportunities, so-called, you could say, football wise, but offer wise, it was all MAC schools, 1AA schools. And so I started to get recruited by Big Ten schools for lacrosse. I was getting recruited by Michigan, Ohio State, Rutgers, and Maryland. And I remember I was talking with the different coaches, and I ended up taking a visit to Columbus, Ohio, to Ohio State. And dude, when I came here, and this is kind of funny, man, I'm sure we'll talk about this throughout the episode, but yeah. I just have felt my whole life, out of all the different characteristics that I have, one thing that I've noticed over the years that I do cherish and that I take a lot of pride in is my decisiveness. Whenever I decide I want to do something, or I'm I have that feeling where I know it's the right route, I just go all in on it, which is a lot of why I'm where I'm at now with what I'm doing. But yeah, man, I visited Columbus, Ohio at Ohio State, and I just fell in love with it. I'm this feels like it's it. This feels like everything that I'm looking for. It checked all the boxes. And dude, I came home from that visit after getting a scholarship offer from Nick Myers, the Ohio State men's lacrosse coach. And dude, I got home and literally a day later committed. So came out here in 2013, I guess, technically. Yeah, 2013 would have been my true freshman year.
Same class. So me and you.
Same class. Yeah. So came into Ohio State, dude, for lacrosse my freshman season. And I remember midway through, I was doing well with it. It was fun. And I met a lot of good guys and guys I'm literally still friends with till this day. But dude, there's just something weird eating at me during that time where I'm like, I really think I need to, play the sport of football.
Totally.
I really felt like I needed to make a change. And it was just one of those like gut feelings, man, where it was like, I liked what I was doing with lacrosse, but it was just like, did I miss out on something with not playing football? Like, I feel like just at the time, my like heart was with football. My head was kind of like with lacrosse. And so, dude, just talking with like some of my high school coaches and talking with family and talking with guys I knew playing football, guys I knew playing lacrosse, kind of just like getting my thoughts and my feelings out there. It really just became more and more evident, like, I don't want to leave Ohio State, but I do want to play football. So, kind of what's the next best thing? And so pretty much I had a great conversation with Coach Myers, the lacrosse coach at Ohio State. He was incredible. He was like, look, if you feel like, you need to follow your heart and really, commit to the game of football, like you'll have my support and you'll always have a home here on the lacrosse program if you want it. And so that was huge for me because that really kind of gave me the green light to, follow this, passion of mine to see what could potentially happen. And so I ended up quitting the lacrosse team, walking away from that, which was tough because I gave up a scholarship. And so ended up quitting the lacrosse team, giving up my scholarship and walking on the football team in 2014 at Ohio State. And this is actually the same year we won the national championship. Crazy. So it was like a very convenient timing style situation. But
and I think that was actually similar timing to when I met you, was right in that transition period. I do remember that. So
right. Exactly, dude. Exactly. So it was like right around that transition period going into the football team. And so, man, it's crazy. Like, I just remember like from the very beginning, like before I even decided to make that jump, I was just committed. Like I actually want to play. Like, I don't want to just be somebody that like walked on the team and then that was it. Like I really was determined like from the jump to get on the field, and it was just much harder than I realized it was going to be. Yeah. So I went, the next couple of years, man, just really grinding through just the adversity and just like being told like, what are you doing? You're crazy. Like you're a walk on. Like
I think one of the biggest things about Ohio State is that, and you probably experienced this. You're on the football team and you're like, I was the man, I was the man. Yeah. And then you show up at Ohio State and you're like, I was the man. And now you're at this level where everybody was the man. And it's just a whole different world out there. So I totally know what you're saying. Okay. Sorry about that. I cut you off.
No, dude, no, you're good, man. You nailed it on the head, Danny. Like, dude, it is. It's one of those things where you highly underestimate it. Like I remember when I was doing that transition, I was like, look, like I want to play. I'm going to get on the field. Like I had these goals written out. I'm like, I'm going to, get on special teams. I'm going to play a linebacker. I'm going to get a scholarship. And like, little did I know, like some of those goals would literally take me like the next 3 years to even like get close to achieving. So a lot of valuable life lessons learned in there, but yeah, I, decided to take that route. Over the next couple of years, battled through that adversity, like really was just grinding and like put it in perspective for the listeners. Like I always tell people like the competitiveness at Ohio State football is like, obviously it's a top tier program, but just to put things into perspective, like literally on like special teams alone, like picture like your punt team, your kickoff team, like any of the special teams, which like most people like kind of put in the back burner and don't like put a huge emphasis on. Totally. We had like 5 string guys. Like we had literally like 4 and 5 guys deep, like per position on special teams. Like we're not even talking like linebacker. It's like, look, like Zach, you were like almost kind of playing. Well, guess what? You're like 5 deep on punt right guard. So it's like, dude, it was very daunting because it's like, you see all these people, like you have like 5-star athletes and like huge recruits, like way ahead of you on the depth charts. And so, dude, it's just like it like really messes with your mentality around it. But I don't know, man. I don't know what it was about me, but I just had like this sick belief like that I was going to get on that field, and I just held on to it, man. And I ended up, going into I'll never forget, man, going into my senior year, I almost quit. I was literally like so close to quitting. I was talking to my family and I'm like, I'm literally giving up holidays. Like I'm home for Christmas for like 2 days. Like I have no life. And like, what is it for? Like, what do I have to show for it? Like, great. Like I'll be able to say I played, at Ohio State and played on Ohio State football, but it's like, what is there to show for it? I'm like wasting my life away trying to chase this dream. And so I basically came to the conclusion I had like, technically it was like my true senior season, but my redshirt junior year. So I had another year of eligibility. And I was going into that season, and I remember I like basically had the understanding with my parents. I'm like, this is it. Like, I'm going to give it one final shot. And I remember like really banded together with Justin, like Justin Hilliard,
Of
my
course.
buddy, like,
Yep.
me and him really like banded together during this time because he was battling adversity with injury. So basically, like, me and him kind of made a commitment because we were best friends at the time. And then like I kind of made this commitment to my family where I was like, look, like I'm just going to give this final year, like every ounce of me. Like in the past, I feel like I was just kind of like complaining and can I cuss on here or no?
Yeah, please.
Sorry, I almost let a few slip, and I was like, I was just like,
we encourage it.
Sure.
We encourage it.
But yeah, dude, I was just like, I was just kind of like complaining and like really feeling sorry for myself, like in the years past, where I'm like, I should be playing, but did I really put forth the kind of level of effort that I can be happy with? And so, yeah, man, I basically just decided to like hunker down, give it literally every ounce of me that I had, like basically leave it all out there and be like, I know I can walk away from that year knowing like I gave it my all and nothing happened, or I gave it my all and something came of it. So either way, like it was a win-win. I would feel okay about it. And dude, literally like that, going into that camp was when like I really started to show out. I remember like Urban Meyer started to like notice who I was. He's like, who's this guy? And then like it started to like, I started taking notice of the coaches, and little did I know, dude, like an injury happened. I worked my way up to like basically second string on like a lot of the special teams. And even that was like a big deal.
Yeah,
like
that's
being a walk on, like you're too deep, like you might get in. And then so luckily, well, not luckily, but for my luck, like I had somebody go down, somebody get injured that was in front of me, and then I was able to go in. And I remember it was like I think it was like my 21st birthday. We were playing Bowling Green, and I like went in for the first time, and just like I remember like blacking out and it just being like a surreal experience, and like it was super emotional because you like worked so hard, for this goal, and like I was just like told no. I was told like you're crazy by so many of like even my friends like who are other walk-ons, and like it was just like crazy, man. And so to experience that, it just like really empowered me, and then ended up playing the rest of that season on special teams. And then my senior season, I got a scholarship, played on special teams, played at fullback on offense in like half the games. So I actually got a lot of playing time on offense at fullback. And then, so yeah, man, pretty much from there, after that 2-year stint of really playing and getting some good game tape, I was like, a lot of people were telling me I could probably play special teams at the NFL level. And so I was like, all right, man, like I never thought this was possible, but I'm going to give it my all. And so ended up training for Ohio State Pro Day. And it was shitty kind of too, because I was dealing with some like lingering injuries and stuff like that, but still performed well. Like ended up running like a 4.6 40 and ended up doing like the 225 bench like 26 times. So like for a linebacker, like I kind of had like all the metrics, and like I had performed. Yeah. I had like all the intangibles and tangibles, to make a team and to play at the next level.
So I'm gonna like stop, because not everybody knows you as well as I know you, but for the listeners who do know me and probably some that will know you as well, Zach's shoulders are twice the size of mine. Twice the size. So if you know me, he's literally twice the size of me. And so when he's saying that he's running these numbers, what did you say, a 4.6?
Yeah.
So Zach's running a 4.6. I ran a 4.6 in college. That is incredible speed for the size that you were. I mean, like that's sick. So
I appreciate it, dude.
That's just something for listeners to kind of be able to picture, like, this is no joke. These guys are like top athletes here. Yeah,
bro. It is, dude. It is crazy. Like, I'm seeing it nowadays too. Like training a couple of my buddies who have been in and out of the NFL. I mean, it is just like, it's a crazy game, man. Like that NFL, that league, it's like you have your top guys, you have guys that, solidify themselves on teams, but there's a whole group and pool of guys that are basically kind of like on the bubble. And it's like basically guys that get, flipped around different teams, they, get picked up, they get cut, they get picked up, they get cut. So there's like a lot of, it's extremely competitive. Absolutely. But yeah, man, I mean, so I ended up performing well, and I had a lot of people. I remember, like, speaking of Justin, like Justin and I were sitting in my apartment like that draft weekend, and I remember like on Sunday is when they would basically like call all the players for undrafted free agent spots. So it's like you got your first round, like first couple rounds, then the next rounds, and then like the draft pretty much closes on the third day. And then right after the draft is over, it's like coaches start calling. And so like I was like ready. I'm like, okay, I'm ready for the call. Like probably going to get picked up like as an undrafted free agent for rookie mini camp. And dude, I remember like sitting around, and I literally never got a call. And I remember I was like even had like Urban hitting me up and like some other coaches hitting me up like, hey, like, have you heard anything? Have you heard anything? Cause like as soon as we hear, we tell them, they announce it and all this stuff. And dude, I literally just never heard anything. And so, you know, I was pretty bummed going into the week after that weekend, but I was like, hey, there could still be, you know, some lingering opportunities in the mix. And so I ended up getting a workout that next week with the Cleveland Browns and went out there, like did linebacker drills. Cause even though I played fullback, I was always more of a linebacker. And so I ended up, you know, trying at linebacker, and then dude, nothing really came of that opportunity either. And then it was kind of like on to the next thing. And so I didn't really have like a super concrete plan B. But you know, basically had started doing my master's in business online while I was training for pro day. So luckily, like, I had that kind of going for me. And so basically, man, I was just like, all right, I guess I'm going to move on, you know, kind of have to, you know, go on to the next thing. I can't just like sit around and wait for an opportunity that's not coming. So ended up, you know, going back home for a quick stint. I moved back to St. Louis, Missouri to finish up my MBA in St. Louis, and then only was there for about a year, and then ended up coming back to Columbus, Ohio to work a sales job. And you know, did well in the corporate world. Like I started as a sales rep, and then with a company and worked up to like a business development manager, and then became like a sales manager where I was like managing my own team. And it was just like with each tier, I was just kind of like feeling like less fulfilled. And I'm like, I just like kind of had this like emptiness inside me. And I'm like, I really need to figure out like kind of like what this next step would really look like, or what my, you know, what is like really my passion? Like what really like fires me up? Like what fulfills me? And so like, dude, really during that time, like during my corporate job, I was doing like a lot of like behind the scenes, just like personal development work. I was reading books. I was listening to podcasts.
You know,
like,
you sound like me. It's funny. It's like, I see a lot of myself in that version of Zach. I mean, obviously, Zach runs his own podcast, just so everybody knows. It's the Life Rewired podcast. And I mean, I'm listening to your first few episodes. I think this was like 6 months ago, a year ago, whatever it was. I think you've had a podcast now for about 2 years. And I remember I was listening to some of this stuff, and it's just like relating with my life. And then I think when I first listened to your show, your podcast, I think I messaged you, and I was like,
yes.
How, you know, did you start a podcast? How did you do that? Kind of what's going on? And actually, like, one of the main reasons why I had you as the first guest is because you were the reason why I wanted to start this podcast. You were the reason.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah. So I mean, it's cool. It's really fun to have you. That's why I wanted you as one of my first guests, because you were really like the one that kind of pushed me into that. I saw you do it, and I was like, that's sweet. Like, that is something that I genuinely think is a very fun time, and you're very good at it, obviously. And I think that you have also progressed in it when you listen to your newest shows with your girlfriend. Versus where it started, it's this like journey kind of. And then listening to your first episodes, it's kind of like, wow, like I'm resonating with this stuff. And then you actually talk about how during this period that you're talking about right now, you were listening to podcasts, right? So go through that and how you were listening to the podcast.
Dude, yeah, it's so wild, bro. Like, I feel like anytime, and this is a good learning point for the listeners. And I thank you for that, Danny. That's so sick that, like, you know, listening to me, kind of seeing me go through it, like, motivated you to, you know, go off on your own. I think that's so dope, dude. And like, you know, dude, what's so crazy is like anytime we're going through adversity in life, like during that time was probably like the most adverse time, other than like dealing with like the adversity with football and like wanting to get on the field. But like, this was even deeper, where it was kind of like, you know, who am I? Like, what do I even do? Like, I kind of like built this life, or started living a life that like is not who I am deep down. And I really kind of almost like suppressed who I really was, I feel like, and I became something like that I wasn't. And dude, I was just like, I remember I stumbled across like Jeremy Scott, and he has his own podcast, and he was kind of like, for me, what I am now, like to you that you're describing. And dude, I just remember it was so crazy. Like, I was kind of fresh into this like whole space of personal development and like self-growth and personal growth. And I just remember turning on his podcast. I was like driving around for my sales job, and I'm like, why am I listening to like music? I'm spending like hours on end in this car. Like, why don't I actually like get some type of value for all this time I'm spending? And so I threw on actually Jeremy's podcast, because I had found him on Instagram, like following him for fitness and workout ideas and stuff like that. And dude, I turned on his podcast, and I remember, dude, like in his podcast is a lot like this, where, he really does speak a lot about that self-growth, personal development, and just like living your life like in alignment with who you really are.
Absolutely.
And I just remember, like, as I was listening to him, man, it was just like, this man is literally speaking to me. Like, he's literally telling me like he literally felt like he was talking to me, bro. And so, throughout that time, I was just like, damn, like, I really need to make a change. And it was like really hard, because you come to build this life, and it's like, now you have to rewire your whole entire approach, your whole entire mindset. Like,
Absolutely.
you have to just like completely change everything. And like, it's uncomfortable. Like, it sucks. Like, you're like, damn, like I worked my way up like in this corporate job, and I have benefits. I've got like savings, and I've got like this whole life built. I'm driving this car, renting this apartment, like living this life. But I'm like, dude, I don't want I hate this. Like, I'm miserable. Like, I need to, he's helping me understand that, like, this is not it. Like, this is not the life that I want to live. And so, dude, that's really like when my personal growth started, like, post getting my master's degree and like working this job. It was during that job I was going through this adversity, and yeah, man, it just felt like he was speaking to me. And it's just such a full circle experience. As you know, Danny, like, we just recently had him on our podcast, and then I was on his podcast.
Yeah, that's
and, like,
so cool.
Just nuts. And, but yeah, man, like, he really sparked me to like initiate that growth. And so, like,
Absolutely.
from there, it was just like, all right, well, what is that thing? Because I think like anybody listening who might be going through that transition or is experiencing some of those emotions where, you're living a life, but you're not necessarily fulfilled or happy with that lifestyle you're living, it's really hard. And that's why a lot of people don't ever take the leap like we're talking about taking, is because it is so hard. We get so caught up in this lifestyle and this image that we want others to perceive us as, and just all this shit. And it becomes a lot of pressure. And to break out of that mold is really freaking hard, dude. But, I just went to the drawing board, man. I literally was like, I remember like I was literally like writing down like pros, cons of like what I'm doing.
I've been there. I've been there. That's a fun time, huh? And
exactly,
and is this
dude.
around the same time that you met Kristen?
Yeah, Christina.
My bad.
Yeah,
she's gonna kill me for that. She's gonna kill me.
No, it's okay.
Oh my gosh. Sorry.
No, you're good, bro. You're good. But yeah, man, it's absolutely wild. So yeah, around the same time that I was like going through a lot of this adversity, I met my now fiance, who just crazy. Like, she was moving into the apartment that I was living at the time from Cleveland.
Oh, nice.
I was moving out of the apartment at the time to go room with Justin, my best friend. And literally we were walking our dogs in Italian Village near like Columbus, Ohio. Like, we're literally walking our dogs. I have a husky shepherd. She has a husky. And we literally stopped and met because of our dogs. Literally.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And it's like, it's nuts. Like, we literally almost missed each other, because like she was moving in, I was moving out. But it just so happened like one day we were crossing paths, and dude, like literally from there is when we kind of started hanging out a little bit. Like, I remember after that time we kept just like seeing each other. And then I saw her out and about on New Year's, and then we like really connected then. And then our first time we like really like met and hung out, I know she was like, hey, like, I'm going to the gym. We were working out at the same gym. She's like, let's meet up at the gym. And so, dude, we literally like got there, and I think for like it was like 2 or 3 hours straight, we literally were like just talking. And it was like we were realizing like how similar we were. We had similar interests. Like, we were both into fitness. We both like were eating the same way. And it's just so funny, bro. Like, I always joked at the time, or like around that time, like before I met her, I would always tell my parents, I'm like, I'm going to have to find the right girl. Cause like I live a weird, different lifestyle than most people. And it's like, I don't know any girl that's going to want to be down with that. But dude, it just goes to show you. And we always talk about this on our podcast. Like when I started doing the work, when I started like really doing the personal development, like really journaling, really taking care of myself, getting my health and my fitness back in line, getting like my mindset right. It's just so gnarly that like she just like was dropped into my life like right during.
And she was doing the same thing.
And she's doing the same thing.
She's going for it too. That is exactly. It is so cool to hear that. That's just awesome. And I mean, I've had enough spicy margs with the two of you to like probably kill a horse. But gosh, I still feel so bad. Like I'm gonna put a personal apology out there for screwing up your name.
No, it's okay.
But so then from there, you essentially then what? You basically chose the fitness industry. You found your kind of passion, right?
Yeah, absolutely, dude. So I would recommend, like, there's a lot of personality, tests out there. that you can take online. But there was one dude that like that really helped me like kind of find like what that next thing would be. And it's called 16 Personalities. If you look it up, anybody listening can find it, but
Cool.
it's like one of the most in-depth like personality assessments that you can ever do. Like it literally gives you like, I mean, it's probably, I think it's literally like, it's like 100, it's like 50 to 100 pages in between that number. It's like a ridiculous amount of pages. And it literally breaks down, like, it gives you like a full analysis of like, this is a career that like fits your personality. And this is why, like, this is a career that does not fit your personality. And here's why. It's like, this is the type of person you'll be in like a relationship. This is the type of person you'll be in like a family situation. So It's just like, it was like this crazy like moment of self-awareness where it was like, as I'm reading through this, it's like telling me like, you'd be a good coach, you'd be a good mentor, you'd be like all these titles that were kind of like pushing me in the direction of health and fitness. And then I remember something like really stood out to me where it was like, you know, somebody said something along the lines of like that, the thing that you're like meant to do or passionate about, or like that thing that's like your calling, like it's something that's always kind of like been present in your life. It's just, you haven't like realized it yet. And it took me back where I was like, I've literally been like working out and like loving fitness, loving training, loving the gym, like literally ever since I was in like 7th grade. Like I literally started working out when I was in like 8th grade. So I've been like physically like active and like lifting weights like well over a decade now, and obviously carried me through my sports. And then really the biggest thing that stood out to me, man, was like during that adverse time, like one of the biggest catalysts, like I would have never gotten into Jeremy Scott. I would have never gotten into personal development if I would have never like gotten my fitness in line. Like if I would have never focused on like, the very first thing I ever did, bro, was like, I'm going to start working out consistently. I'm going to start eating better. That was like my only commitment that I made. And it literally steamrolled into this whole entire life I'm living now, which is crazy. But yeah, man, it was pretty much evident, like, you know, through doing the personality test, really reflecting on my interests, really reflecting on what fires me up. Like, what do I want my day to look like? And dude, it was just like staring me down. I'm like, you know, like health and fitness, like being a trainer, like that is truly it. And then what was cool was, like we talked about around that time is when I met Christina, and she was doing it. Like she was living it. She was in it. Yeah. And then I was like, holy shit, like, you know, this is actually possible, because at the time I'm like, you know, I only really saw fitness as like, you're either a strength coach, like a strength conditioning coach, or you're like, you know, hired on at a gym, like teaching classes. And, you know, I never really like 100% wanted to go either one of those routes. But seeing Christina and seeing like how she was doing it, I'm like, I didn't even know you could do it like this. And so she kind of like modeled for me, like what was possible. And I think that that's another like crucial life lesson, is like, if you want to do something, or you like want to like, you're passionate about potentially trying something or doing something, like you really do have to almost like surround yourself like with those people, because sometimes we don't even realize like what's possible until we see somebody else doing it and modeling it. Kind of like, once again, dude, like kind of like you getting inspired like through our podcast, where it's like, you know, you saw what was possible. You're like, shit, I can do this. And it's like, you went off and you did it. And like, that's what's so cool, man. I think that that's what's awesome about like, you know, we can all kind of inspire each other to do great things. But yeah, man, pretty much she really modeled it for me, man. And so, you know, midway through like my 2nd year working in my corporate job, dude, it was starting to get like really, really intense, like where I was traveling a lot. I was really feeling burnt out. Like my feeling of like unfulfillment and like those negative emotions were literally just like getting so intense. And bro, I'm not even kidding you. Like I got to the point where I was like, I am so miserable. I literally will rather quit this job and try to live off my savings and doing something that actually like is remotely enjoyable, to just like figure it out. Like I was at that breaking point where it was like, I would rather quit, have nothing, and at least like enjoy my 24 hours than to literally keep doing what I'm doing, even though I was like making great money, like doing all this shit. And it's like, I was miserable. And so, dude, I literally decided, it was like a Monday call with the VP of my company. And I'm just like, hey man, like I literally just laid it out there. I'm like, I'm quitting. Like I'm going to move on. I'm going to go do my own thing. And like everybody was shocked, like, cause obviously I had been doing well in the company, but I just told, and they respected it, cause I didn't bullshit them. It was just like, hey, look, like I'm not fulfilled. Like I have the awareness to realize like, this is not what I want to do in the life I want to live. And I don't enjoy this job. And so, dude, I literally, I pulled out. I think I had like, I probably had like $5,000-$6,000 saved. Like that's it. Like I was doing like the minimum contribution, like an idiot, like my first year in my job.
Yeah.
So I had like nothing basically. And I'm like, all right, 5-6 grand, like, all right, cool. Like, let's see if we can live off of that. And so,
Yeah.
dude, I literally just quit, went into this full time, like got my certification, went off with that money. And like, I just started living off of it. And I'm like, I either have to make this work or I'm going to go back into working a job of some kind. And so, dude, ever since then, I haven't looked back, and it's literally gotten me to, where I'm at now, owning and running my own business, and, having also like worked at a couple other places and learned a lot along the way, obviously. But yeah, man, it's just crazy to think that like, I took that leap, and then to think like where I'm at now, I would have never in a million years thought I could ever get to this point, man. It all started with like just wanting to enjoy my Monday through Friday. And like, now, not only do I love what I do, but it's like I'm making way more money than I ever made in corporate America. And it's just like, it's just unbelievable, man. I feel like, me and my fiance recently, we always talk like how grateful we are just to, be in this position we are, and to be able to do what we do, man. Cause, I'm fulfilled, man. I love it. Obviously, you got your stressors, but yeah, man, it's great.
Well, so like you went through a huge transition period in college, right? Like where you were going from lacrosse, you went into football. Right. So you had that transition period. Then you had the transition period between this corporate job that probably other people look at as like, Zach, you're doing great. You basically have the life by your balls. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you have everything. And in your head, you're like, and that's just like being at lacrosse, in lacrosse for you. Like you had everything. Everybody knows playing sports at Ohio State was sick. It was like the best experience. Sick. But even then you were like, I feel like I have everything, but there's something else out there. I'm missing it. I'm missing something. And having that for you're missing something in this corporate job as well. So was that second period of this transition zone, like the second one going from corporate to your own thing, was it easier because of the first one that you did, or harder?
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. You bring up a great point, Danny. And that's like, dude, that's such a good life lesson of like doing hard shit and like going through adversity. Like, it absolutely sucks in the moment, but it's like, it is teaching you the most crucial life lessons, man. Like if I would have never, like, dude, taking that leap, like I can tell you right now, I would have never been able to like survive this entrepreneurship journey. Like if I were to not have gone through what I went through with football, because like during that transition, it was like, you're taking this leap for one with absolutely zero guarantees. And as an athlete, like every athlete is like craving guarantees. It's like, this coach promised me this spot. This coach promised me that spot. And it's like, dude, there's like literally already like minimal guarantees. And so, I went into this opportunity with zero guarantees, like with the football transition, like zero guarantees. I even had people literally telling me to my face, like friends at the time telling me to my face, like, dude, like, why don't you just give it up? Why are you trying so hard? Like, dude, just come on, like, just give it up. And so, dude, it's just crazy. Like, if I would not have learned what it meant to like truly push through and like truly like put in a high level of work, like deep down having your eyes like on a goal, but not listening to like the external stuff. Like, yeah, dude, that whole thing is what made me successful as an entrepreneur. Cause when I took that leap and hit adversity early on and, maybe necessarily wasn't having like the immediate success that I wanted, I realized like, that's okay. I've been here before. I've gone through this adversity. And so it's like, just keep going. And it's like, it goes back to that. There's a saying Alex Hormozy says a lot. He's great too. And he always says like, I will not lose if I do not quit. And it's like, or if I do not quit, I cannot lose. So it's like, that's just like that's been like the mantra of my life, man, is like, just keep going, keep pushing. And like, if you have, if you have a deep down desire, you have something that you want to achieve, like, dude, it's going to get lonely sometimes. Like you're going to be probably like one of the only people that believe in it. And that's why like having my fiance, Christina, like I always tell her, like having her, bro, like, that experience helped me a lot, but also having her has like changed the game for me. Like if I didn't have her, like, I don't think I would have made it either through this because, dude, it's hard. Like, it's not easy. Hard.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
Wow. No, it's so good to hear. You set yourself up for success, really, going through a lot of that. So, then I wanted to go back a little bit in time. So, like, your Ohio State days. So this is one of the fun things for all of us to talk about, reminisce on the fun days and what we used to do. And, I literally laugh when I think about the people that we used to like be with on a day-to-day basis. And you're like, gosh, the things we used to do, it was a blast. With that said, when you were on the football team, you got to experience some of the greatest things. I mean, you're literally first year. I know you weren't playing at that point, but you won a national championship. You were on the team.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that shit was crazy. Like, I remember, kind of like I said, I went in even to that year, like early on, I'm like, oh, I'm going to play. I'm going to do all this. And like, no chance. Like, I was literally like the lowest of the lowest of the low. Like, it is crazy looking back. Like, I was literally like sitting, I think, well, I never ended up going because I was just so salty about it. But I remember they would give like certain walk-ons like tickets to the games. So like, dude, when I joined the team, like there's a pool, there's like a group of walk-ons who like literally don't even dress or get invited to the game. Like, you literally are in the stand, like they throw you in the stands like a spectator. And I was like, fuck that. Like, I'm not going to be in the stands. So anyway, just to paint the picture, like that's kind of where I started out, like from there, and then eventually getting the scholarship. But yeah, man, that first year, it was kind of one of those things where I was very like in my own world. I wasn't even like thinking really about like what was happening with the team at the time. I was almost just like in survival mode of like, I just got to like make it through this practice. Like, I just got to like not mess up this drill. Like, yeah. I was just so hyper focused on like what I was doing and like my process that like, I didn't even realize like, damn, like we're becoming like a national champion contender. And then like, before you know it, like we're just like steamrolling teams. And then luckily, like I had earned like a little bit of respect in that first year. So I was able to like, obviously go to the national championship. I did dress, like I got to wear a jersey. I think it was like, I was in like a jersey or something for like those last couple games. But yeah, man, I mean, the national championship we played, in that year we played Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. Yep. Which was like unbelievable. And then played Oregon in the Natty. And yeah, man, I think that, just really like experiencing that and being around like those players and those coaches, like it really put in perspective, like the level of effort and the level of like attention to detail, and the discipline and the like just everything that it took to get to that point and win a game like that. Yeah. And dude, yeah, I mean, experiencing that was like life-changing. That is really what like kicked me in another gear to even work harder. Cause I remember like feeling like, shit, I just got like a national championship ring. Like I haven't done anything for this team yet. It's like that, it just pushed me even harder to want to get on the field. And now I can look back and like really enjoy those rings and enjoy that hardware. But yeah, man, I mean, it was unbelievable. Like, when we won, it was just so surreal. Like, the confetti going off, like I remember like right before we won, they're like handing out the newspapers. It said like, Buckeyes like win national championship. And then obviously like the campus was going absolutely nuts. And like, dude, it was just unbelievable. And like, I will say like, I got blessed to be on the teams I was on at Ohio State the years I was there. Cause like I played with some unbelievable guys who are still, balling out in the NFL right now to this day. But It was just really cool to like, once again, like be around that level of like professionalism, that level of work ethic, that level of discipline, just to like see what it really took behind the scenes to get to that point, was unbelievable. Gosh,
that's just so fun. I was actually at the game. So
were you at the
So night? I ended up going, I didn't really tell many people. But essentially that year, my brother went to Baylor. And I obviously went to Ohio State. And so there was two games that day. It was Baylor versus Michigan State was playing. And obviously, so that's another Big Ten team. And then there was Ohio State versus Alabama. And so my brother told me, it was like halftime. I think the score of the Baylor versus Michigan State game was something like 21-3 or something like that at halftime. I'm not mistaken. And then the Buckeyes played at night. And and we were already off. Our season was done because this is now January or very end of December, beginning of January. And my brother goes, he looks at me like dead in the eyes in front of my family and goes, if Michigan State comes back to win and the Buckeyes beat Alabama, I'll buy your ticket to the national championship game.
Oh my God.
And I was like, he didn't even ask me to give another side to it. Like, what happens if it doesn't happen? So I just committed. I was like, yeah, you're on. Like, let's go. Michigan comes back. Baylor plays the worst second half of all time. And I'm just sitting there like, oh my gosh, if we can just beat Alabama. And my brother's like, well, I'm good. Like, Alabama's going to win.
Yeah, it's Alabama. Yeah, it's
everybody thought. That year, everybody was like, what's going to happen? So we're sitting there, we're watching the game. We're doing well. Obviously, you know how the game went. And then, Zeke crushes the South, goes 85 yards. And I remember at that moment, I looked at my brother, and my brother was like almost white because he was still in college. He was a senior at Baylor at that point, and you could like see like he probably didn't have like, I don't know, probably not that much money. I mean, he was doing fine, but like, so he was sitting there going, oh my gosh, I have to buy not only Danny a ticket to the national championship game, but myself a ticket to the national championship. So I think that was when he decided that he's a Buckeyes fan. He was like, all right, if I'm going to go to an Ohio State game in the national championship. So obviously now he's always been a pretty, my brother's always like my biggest fan when I was playing at Ohio State.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool to experience obviously the game that you were at and won, with my brother. And the best part is like, you go to these games and I'm like, oh yeah, I was with him the other day. I was with him the other day. You're like, these are all some of my boys. And watching you guys win, it just like made everything better. And I think that was also the year where you guys steamrolled Wisconsin, right?
Yeah. That was like that 59-0 game.
Yeah. And so my parents met at Wisconsin.
Oh,
and
wow.
half of my family went to Wisconsin. And so the amount of trash talk before that game. Oh my gosh. And so when we had our, third string quarterback coming in and just wiping the floor clean with them, it was like the greatest moment of my life. I mean, just
amazing,
watching
dude.
you guys just destroy it. I mean, it was so fun. And I remember around halftime was when the texts stopped coming through.
Oh yeah.
They stopped, they got really quiet. And so I was like, this is such a good moment.
It's game over.
Yeah.
We got it.
Exactly. So no, what a good experience. Wow. And then the other thing I was going to talk about was the similarities between you and I and how we actually got recruited to Ohio State. And a lot of people may not know this who there's a lot of people that have played high level athletics that me and you have been involved with, but not everybody has gotten to that point. And so the crazy thing is sometimes it's just like a luck of the draw. It's something that just like happens that leads to meeting one person that kind of connects the dots for you. Mine was accidentally scoring. And there was at the one game that there was like all the coaches were at versus like the number 2, I scored at the right time. And after that day, my life changed, right? Like I just scored actually 2 goals in like 20 minutes. And I scored 2 goals the whole 3 games that we played there, but they were all within 20 minutes when everybody was there. And it legitimately changed my life. And for you, you have a similar story, right? Like you weren't at I believe it was some recruiting thing with your.
Oh, yes.
And so you kind of went through this. It was like a luck of a draw. And all of a sudden it kind of propelled you and you met through that. Can you, go through that?
Yeah, dude, for sure. No, I'm really happy you bring this up because like on previous podcasts and stuff, like I feel like I've kind of talked about this, but haven't really gone into it. And I think that it is like a cool story, but yeah, man. So literally around that like junior season of our junior year of my high school career, I remember like there was a lot of kids that were playing lacrosse at the time. To get recruited, you had to basically like kind of pay your way onto these like club travel teams.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like I'm sure you remember that from like soccer and stuff. Yeah. And like a lot of these for lacrosse, like being in the Midwest, like especially during the time like I was in high school, like lacrosse was by no means like where it is today. Mm-hmm. And so like guys in the Midwest like were rarely recruited for D1. Like it was basically like you go to any D1 roster at the time, like it's all people from the East Coast and all Canadians. Like that is it.
That's what I was going to ask. I was like, is East Coast the big one?
Yeah, it's like mostly East Coast, mostly Canada. And so like basically the only chance to get recruited as like a Midwest person was to go on these like club travel teams. And it was like, you'd only play like during the summer and it would just be like ridiculous amounts of money. Like my parents were not down to pay for it. I sure as hell wasn't about to pay for it. So like basically like I was never going to like get that opportunity. Mm-hmm. And dude, it's so wild. So at that same time was when I was like kind of gun ho, like, all right, I'm going to play football. Like my lacrosse recruitment hadn't taken off yet. Yeah. And I remember this coach that coached high school ball in the East Coast. I always forget like where he was technically from and what the high school was, but he was like coming from like a powerhouse, like big, like well-known high school in the country out up east. And he moved down to, it was a school called MICDS, which was like a local school near my high school in St. Louis. And he basically had this, it was honestly like looking back, like especially now being an entrepreneur, it's sick, this idea that he had. But basically he made the decision to create a select team. So like one of those travel teams that would travel throughout the summer. He basically had the idea of, why don't we let every single person in this whole, like the whole state of Missouri, like let's let every single person in the whole state of Missouri try out. And to select who was going to make it, we would bring together all the local high school coaches in St. Louis, and then also surrounding areas too in other cities around Missouri. And then we would bring in college coaches to not only like recruit, but those college coaches would also decide who would make the team. So like basically after the tryout, the high school coaches, the college coaches would come together and they would basically voice their opinion on who the top 22 guys would be. That it was called Missouri 22.
How many people were probably at this tryout just in general?
I think it was like 500. It was like 400 or 500
yeah,
people.
So it's definitely not like just a walk in the park. There's not 30 people and they cut 10 and they're like, whoever else. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
It was extremely competitive. And dude, to be honest with you, this is the crazy wrinkle about this whole story. So at the time, I was gun-ho football, and I was actually at a buddy's house Friday night, and the tryouts were Saturday morning. And I'm not kidding. I literally had no intention of going to the tryout because I was like, I'm going to play football in college. Like, I guess I'm just going to put lacrosse on the back burner. And I get a call from my high school lacrosse coach, and he was like a real like funny guy, like real fanatical. And he was like, he calls me, he's like, Z, he's like, where the hell are you? Like, why are you not at this tryout? And I'm like, I didn't plan on coming. And he's like, get your ass here right now. Like he really didn't give me an option. He was just like, get your ass here right now. It's almost like as if he knew like you need to be here, which is crazy looking back. Totally. And so dude, I'm not kidding you. I was like super, super late. I like met my mom to get my lacrosse gear, and I got here, show up late, like miss a lot of like the beginning of the tryout and the beginning of it. And I just like jump in and just start like balling out. Like I just start like crushing it. Yeah. And I remember like after that, like basically I had one of the Duke, like there was like a Duke coach there, and Duke was obviously like a huge lacrosse program. I don't think this guy was like super high up in the coaching staff. I think he was just like an assistant or something, but he was definitely there. And cause he had these connections with this coach from the East Coast. And so I remember him coming up, or telling that coach like about me, like this kid's the best player at this tryout. That's sick. I was like, holy shit. Like, because he had obviously relayed the message to me. And so basically, man, literally from that tryout is when all my lacrosse recruitment took off. So like crazy. From that moment, like literally like Rutgers, that's like, they were like really hot on me. Like they were emailing me like, and calling me like literally weekly. They were like throwing around, like we could get you almost like full ride, like because in lacrosse, like you don't get a full ride. It's like partial. Same with
soccer, a bunch of different sports other than probably football. And I don't really, I forget what basketball is. I'm not going to speak on it because I don't really know, but it's not really easy to get those fulls.
No, exactly. And so, dude, it was just like crazy. I was just like, holy shit, like this is nuts. Like I didn't expect any of this, but I just was like, I think it's because I just went to the tryout, like super relaxed. Like I wasn't really like expecting anything. And I just was like, I just did me and I played as I normally would. And dude, that's when my lacrosse recruitment took off. I ended up, making that team, becoming a captain of that team. Wow. And then, man, like that's when, I started talking to Ohio State for lacrosse, Michigan for lacrosse, Rutgers for lacrosse. So literally if it wasn't for that tryout, like I'm not, honestly, I don't go through any of that.
Honestly, probably that phone call.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, dude, where are you? And that's all it is. Yeah. That's what it took. And so, wow, that is freaking awesome. So nuts, good job. Like, no, that pumps me up. Like that just fires me up for you, like right now even. So
no, thank you, dude.
And then, the other part that I find is kind of funny is how, when you have that like sliver of opportunity, it's not like much, right? Like you showed up late. They could have easily just crossed your name off, something like that. If I don't start that game that I played in, that I ended up scoring 2 goals in the first 20 minutes, if I don't start that game, all these different, things don't fall into place. So it's just fascinating. And then, you know, how everybody kind of has a similar story though. When you're at Ohio State, like you're like, how did you get here? How did you get here? It's just so similar. It's like, oh, this is wild. So just crossing paths, it's just awesome. So, other than those things. So then there's two more things that I wanted to touch on real quick. I know we're kind of wrapping things up, but let's, I want you to be able to give a shout out to your podcast and everything that you can do for your podcast, and kind of what you guys are about. And then tell us like what, your future goals are, whether it's, your podcast goals. I mean, that's great too. I know you guys are crushing it there. And then also tell us about your personal goals and kind of what you see yourself doing in the next few years so that we can stay up to date with you.
Yeah, absolutely, Danny. No, I appreciate that, man. So yeah, my fiance, Christina, and we have our Life Rewired podcast. And so it's just kind of cool. Like I actually started that podcast myself. And I know I even said throughout this, like when I was going through that adversity, I had to like rewire like my whole life, rewire my approach, rewire my mindset. And that's really why I came up with the podcast name, like Life Rewired, because it just spoke to exactly kind of like the personal development that I had to go through to get to this point. And then, as we were like dating, and then obviously when we got closer to like becoming like fiancés, like it just was becoming more and more evident that like, why would she not be on this? And I remember I like had her on for like one episode, and me and her were kind of just like, cause she wanted to get involved in like she wanted to do one. And I'm like, why don't we just like, this just makes sense. Like, why don't we just go in on this thing all in together? And so pretty much, we did that over the last, within the first year, it was kind of just me for the first several episodes. And then really in year two, me and her just, really took off together. We've committed to, doing one episode every week. So you guys can tune in on literally all platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, we're on everything. So it's Life Rewired. Life Rewired. That's all you got to type in. You'll find it.
No, please do, guys. I think that this is, I try to listen as much as possible. It's great kind of having one, I know you personally, so it's easy for me to connect, and I kind of know where you guys come from. And then from there though, it's just a great podcast. You guys produce good content, so I love it. So
thanks, man.
And then what are your goals going forward?
Yeah, bro. So I've been making a huge shift, going from, like I started off with personal training, doing like predominantly in-person training. And then, through, seeing what was possible with Christina, I really wanted to explore the online coaching route.
And you just started your own brand, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So
Sweet.
last April. Yeah. So it was like right around. So we're literally almost coming up on like one, even though I've been like training for like several years now, we're coming up close to like the 1 year anniversary of me launching my rebrand and my official brand, which is the Everyday Athlete, which is so nuts, man. Like as me and Christina and I, my fiance, as we were driving out, she had no idea that I was proposing to her, but literally on our way out to Hocking Hills, me and her were like, we always like just get in these grooves where like we start talking, we start spitballing ideas. And every time we've gone out to like Hocking Hills or Denver, like gotten out into nature, it's like, we've always like experienced like this crazy amount of clarity just because you're so like free, you're out in nature, you're just thinking straight. And I remember like both of us were literally like, she was going through some adversity working with a coaching program. She wanted to kind of rebrand and do her own thing. I wanted to take a more like online focus because at the time I was at a pinnacle where I'm like, do I open a gym or do I take the online route? And so, dude, we both just like on our way out to Hocking Hills, she didn't know I was proposing, but on my way to propose to her, we just had this clarity. And I'm like, I really want to help guys, like guys especially, in their life after sport, because that really hits home with me. And I learned so much as an athlete, so many life principles, so many good values and disciplines as an athlete, but my life looks different now. I'm just an everyday guy now. I'm no longer this athlete. And I'm like, everyday athlete. This makes complete sense. Yeah. And so, dude, I literally, ran with that brand. I love it, dude. Like, I worked with a graphic designer from Ohio State who did all of our Ohio State football stuff. And he helped me like develop my brand and do my marketing and stuff like that. And dude, it's just been unbelievable. And so, dude, I mean, I went all into the online process, and it was obviously shaky at first. And you're just trying to get it rolling. You're trying to get it, started, trying to create something that's really legit. Cause like, obviously like a lot of online coaching processes are like kind of subpar. And I was very committed to like providing something that was truly like really hands-on, really professional, really well done, like not all over the place. And like, I know, like I've heard so many different things about so many different coaching programs. And so I was just determined to do it well and do it right. And, dude, I just took it and ran with it. And, I've grown it substantially over this last year. And so for future plans, man, I mean, I'm at a point right now where I have a really good groove between some in-person clients who've been with me for a really long time that I'm super close with, that obviously it'll be hard someday if I ever, detach from them. But yeah, man, I would say for the future, Christina and I, we love traveling. We definitely have a goal of both of us being, fully online someday down the line. I know she is fully online, and I'm kind of like in that in between right now. And so I really just want to keep building out the Everyday Athlete brand. I think that there's just so many things that could come from that one brand alone, because I'm so passionate just about, helping former athletes in general. I think it's, a huge demographic of individuals out there. Obviously, as we know, there's more people out there in general that, didn't make it professionally than did make it professionally, or who even just didn't make it past like high school or college. And, when we have that sport, when we have that meaning and that purpose, everything makes sense. And when we don't have that, everything doesn't really make sense. And so like, I know for me, like a huge catalyst for progressing my growth was focusing on my health, my fitness, my mindset. And that's exactly what I'm doing now. I'm providing that catalyst for those former athletes that are struggling. And so, dude, that's, I see so much for the Everyday Athlete brand. I could see myself even branching out into like, speaking and really like getting out there and helping former athletes in other ways outside of just coaching. So dude, definitely a lot to the vision, but I know when I started this Everyday Athlete brand, dude, I'm just like, I'm going all in on it. And Christina and I collectively, we want to continue growing the podcast and getting, more and more guests on. We've got a lot of people planned out on, in the future. And then me and her actually are, we have something coming in the works that we're going to be working on over these next couple of years, where me and her are actually going to be potentially doing something together, which is going to be really, really powerful.
There you go.
So yeah, man, we've got some awesome things to come in the future, but really just building out this Everyday Athlete brand, and then, expanding individually, both of us, but then also collectively.
Yeah. And I'll tell the listeners, before we kind of wrap this up, if you're looking for anything, in the realm of what Zach has been talking about, please reach out immediately. I think that not only is he very well respected, but he really has a lot to share and a lot to give back. I think a lot of people are really open to learning. They just don't know where to even go, right? Sometimes. Yes. And so there's something about that Zach can give you that space to kind of grow yourself and grow you as an everyday athlete, honestly. So absolutely, Zach, bro. Thanks for being on. Let's wrap it up. This is going to be check out our podcast every Tuesday. It's going to come out, and then from there, thank you for joining us in general, and then thanks for listening to the listeners. And I look forward to doing this more often. And then follow us on basically every platform as well that you can follow Zach on. So thanks, guys.
Absolutely, dude.
Sweet.
Well, thank you, Danny.
Yep.
I appreciate you having me, man.
Dude, absolutely. Thanks for joining. See you later.
It is those random acquaintances that make possible
the world a better place.
6 degrees